Hey everyone, thanks for joining. John here, staff software engineer with 10 plus years of experience. And today we are working on V3 for Latterly and V4 while we're at it. If you have been with me for a long time, you'll know that Latterly is the third repository. So there's like even older versions. So when I say V3, I mean V3 of V3, if that makes sense. You see in the releases here in the lower right, it says V2. V2 is shipped. Next, we'll be doing V3. So you'll be able to see a bit of the prioritization, and then hopefully we'll get into some code. So the vision here, and it's necessary to create a vision so that you have a coherent marketing story. A marketing story, what's the point in doing release if you can't market it effectively, basically? You want to do a release so that you can tell people that you did a substantive thing, right? And so there's a prefab concept that Amazon uses, and it's a really great way to crystallize this. You basically imagine that a media article has written an article about your release, and what are the things that you want to brag about and the highlights. What did you fix? What did you add? So this is a really great way to create a vision for your release, and then that can be a grouping tool to group tasks, and then you can prioritize those tasks. Okay. And I wanted to do this because I got into a problem that a lot of people get into, which is that there's just too many high priority tasks. Like I can't do all this. I can't do all this in short order. There's 30 of these. And when reflecting on, okay, which of these are truly high priority, I had to tell myself a story about what is it that I want to do next. And what I want to do next is that connects to the prefab idea. And it also has to do with what users have told me, right? So users have told me, for example, that they want social sign-in. So that plays in. So the V3 concept is enabling prestige. I recently released the leaderboard, top honors leaderboard. You can go there and vote now. So you can view the current leaders. There's not a ton of votes, but that'll grow over time. And you can also vote. So this votable concept is part of enabling prestige. There's two more prongs. The second prong is I want to enable Latterly itself to be prestigious, not just ranking other prestige, but actually becoming prestigious. And one of the ways that I can do this is by adding casting Latterly to a votable is a technical way to think about this. So there's a loose way to do it, and then there's a technical way to do it. The technical way is that all these articles will become votable entities, and you'll be able to vote on like what's the better and worse articles. So I'll be implementing that, and then also site surveys and continuous user feedback and prompting for feedback, a call to action for feedback will be another element of this enabling prestige bit. And then third and finally is enabling certain things that I've already been told and I already know that to have a quality website, people are already asking for these, whether they've told me through Slack or Discord or whatever it may be. One of those will be social sign-in, a better Stripe integration, better SEO, which is actually already done, and more app router migration, which is already done. So we're grouping these into this enabling prestige concept. That'll be release 3. Release 4 is, I recently went through the job search myself, had a bunch of great outcomes, manually did a bunch of things related to interview prep, and integrating those into the system and creating tools that can automate that. That's the concept for V4. That's the concept for V4. Okay, and so 2 things that we're going to do at the start of this stream before we dive into the code. The first thing we're going to do is tag issues appropriately based on this prioritization. And then the second thing that we are going to do is answer Zach Wilson's question here. So he took a survey, what is the ideal length of a technical boot camp? And he's doing a consumer-facing survey where he's saying the most likely you'd be willing to pay for. Bad news for you, the one that people want to pay for is not the one that employers want. People want to pay for cheap and quick. Employers want long and high quality. So I actually have research on this, and I threw this link in there, but it'll be much more useful if I can get the specific number. And so we'll do a bit of data analysis work before we loop back and come to the social sign-in So 3 big things we're trying to tackle today. Don't know that we'll get through all of it. I mean, I'll get through all of it today. I don't know if I'll get through all of it during the stream. Thank you so much for the likes. Thanks for being here. And so let's dive in. So this first bit is a bit boring, right? We're just going to tag issues. Boring but important. So V3 and V4 roadmap and prioritization. We'll go ahead and give this a V3 tag just for the consistency of calling it high priority, right? And maybe we'll put V3 and V4. But let's see. So this task will be done long before V4. So I'll put the V3 label on it and we'll close it out when we're done. Votable snapshot cron. So this will be neither V3 nor V4. We can do that after V4. Community votable tagging. Yeah, let's see. I'll do this later. I'll do this later. I don't think it's essential right now. So I'll call this high priority. Let's see. No, I think the idea is that I'll get through V4 and then I'll do another loop for high priority. So we're leaving these off, leaving this off. Better Leak Code Kata is going to be part of V4. Let's go red. Oh. Orange. We'll go for orange. Who is working on these tickets? Mostly me, although there have been 6 other contributors. And so you're welcome to, so there's 5 here, and then there's a couple on a different repository because Laterally spans across repositories. And then there have been other people who said they would, and then they never did, right? So you're welcome. It's open source. You're welcome to come join the Discord and chat about it, or you can just read the ticket. Maybe it's obvious enough. Okay, so we have the V4 on here. Better Leak Code Kata, right? Better fallback components. This will be not V3 or V4. So this is good. So this is giving permission to skip tasks, right? Better top honors leaderboard. We'll include this in V3. Sign JWT, we can do that later. Optimizing onboarding. This really is like a V5. So after the job search, now I'm getting into my sort of onboarding era, right? So here, we'll make this V3 and V4 and V5, roadmap prioritization. The V5 concept is junior to staff plus, enhancing the checklists, and my own onboarding era. Let's see, is that worth making a whole version? Kind of feels like it could be a couple of user stories, huh? We'll make it a version. So junior to staff, and so we'll also do one more thing. So blogging, my own onboarding work, and creating an onboarding checklist. Creating an onboarding checklist. A user can have many of these as they onboard to different companies or different teams. Cool. I think there's enough there. I'll keep thinking about it. Arguably, there's enough there that it could count as a version. Laterally is a collaborative resource. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then if it ends up being like only 2 or 3 user stories, fine. I'll just close the user stories. That's fine too. So what we're focused on right now is prioritizing, right? So optimizing onboarding, we'll call this V5. Green, looks good to me. So we'll call this V5 and maybe we'll peel the label off later. That's fine. Open source achievement messaging guide. Sure, this can be part of V5. So messaging effectively is part of the junior to senior concept for sure. Promote laterally. This, I kind of feel like I should close this, huh? Did a product launch in terms of paid promo. Okay, so this is like paid promo, huh? That's much later. It's like next year kind of stuff. Offer negotiation resource. Yeah, this could be part of V4. So that's relevant to the job search, right? Cool. Random kata problem is V4. Testimonial is also V4. The reason testimonials are also V4 is because I want to demonstrate that laterally is not just effective for me, but just like effective for most people. Most people. Staff SWOT analysis feels like part of the junior to senior plus thing, so we'll call that V5. Refresh these. Okay. Blog eng AI usage over time, we'll leave that out. Fill in the blank algo study, we'll leave that out. Automated site. So this is part of V3 here.
Daddy, where's Mom?
I think she's walking the dog. Fix kata coverage. We can kind of slot this wherever we want. I'll do this in V4. It's related to the job search, we'll say. Okay, and by the time we reach the bottom of this page, we're basically done because these are all the new issues that needed prioritization. Yeah. This P2 thing, okay. So P2, user-generated content is amazing for SEO. Yeah, okay, so user-generated content. P2 means like I'm not working on it today. I was starting to use this P2 thing before I was like, let me do a prefab. So this, I feel like I can call it high priority again. So we'll use this high priority label again. Maybe I should keep P2. What I want to do is I want to look through the high priority items. Label P2. Am I using it anywhere else? Yeah. Better interview prep, right? So this should be changed to V4. Cool. Okay, so here's the V3, and now I have a lot more focus. Instead of 30 items, I have like 3 items. That's wonderful. And one of these is about to be done. One of these is about to be done. I can actually turn this into the like V3 blog task. So yeah, don't close this until I make blog tasks for the PR FAQs for V4 and V5. This task itself includes writing the V3 PR FAQ. Cool. And so yeah, if 3 tasks makes V3, well, that plus a bunch of tasks that are already done. So that's not quite true. I was going to say if 3 tasks makes V3, then 3 tasks can make V5. But that's not quite true because I've done a lot more in V3 already. What about high priority that doesn't have these V whatevers on them? So V4, V3, updated search techniques. Yeah, we can put that in V3. Sorry, as part of the job search. So that would be V4, not V3. Okay, permission purge, we can do that later. Q&A later. Hello interview, this is going to be part of job search stuff. Okay. Next, local storage blog walkthrough, that's later. Ref neat code big O video. I think this could be arguably v4. Better leak code linked list cycle. Yeah, let's include all this in v4, right? So this is like better kata stuff. Right. Hopefully those should be easy wins. Sound easy. Famous last words. 8 keys of the laterally standard checklist. This is going to be like checklist upgrade in v5, right? Junior to senior checklist v5. Okay. And so blog meta, is this done now? Likes, oh, we're going to do this like pretty much right now. v3. Social auth will be v3. I think we're going to skip, let's see. That's fine. These 4 works. These 4 works. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. Close a bunch of these tabs. Premium articles, we can do that later. Google social sign-in. That's going to be part of v3. Prompt technique deep dive. We'll do that later. Stripe elements. So this is going to be part of v3. This is like the Stripe fix-up stuff. Better Stripe. And then, yeah. When do I want to do the teachable import? Probably as part of v4. I think like the teachable import enabling is like a big reason to do v3 at all. Because it's like Teachable has a bunch of these people that signed up when I used Teachable. And I want them to come over to the Laterally site, but not until the Laterally site is like good enough to replace the Teachable platform. Okay, so that's the purpose of this. And I think once the Stripe thing and social sign-in are fixed, then we're basically good to go. So we'll include that. Cool. So I think that is our prioritization exercise. And so, cool. Now I have these 9 things to do to get v3 done. And that feels good. That feels like there's a substantive release to cut at that point and to like brag about, basically. So let's go over to the data thing. And then we'll come back and do some code. We'll do some code, try to work on social sign-in. So I have the LinkedIn and the Google OAuth clients. And so I should be able to try to integrate them into the code. I don't have Discord ready today. I don't have, what was the other one? GitHub ready today. But I think once the other 2 are working, those latter 2 will be hopefully straightforward to implement. Okay. So optimal duration, right? I have this repository, research dissertation case for alt ed. Okay, I have this cloned on my local. We can close this. And so I just remembered that I did some work on this. And basically, if you clone it and if you Command Shift F duration, and if you filter out JSON files and whatever, because we're looking specifically for research. So if you filter out JSX, TS, right? So we're ignoring all that stuff, GraphQL. Sure, filter out the JavaScript too, .js. Man, so many file types, eh? At some point, you kind of narrow this thing down and you can scroll through. Don't want to filter out the Python. Don't want to filter out the Python because data analysis, we do that in do files and in Python, right? So here's the expected duration. And so alt, ed, gender, like all of these, I have multiple papers drawing on these data sources. And then if you read them, like where do they get the data? Get dskewed data. Where does the data come from? That'll point you to the CSV file. I'm trying to explain to you how to look up where the data is if I didn't already know, because I just kind of magically know, right? So here's alt, ed. There's like a few of these CSVs. And these are different survey samples, by the way. So we can look across them and try to get like a robust answer. So the trick is to make sure that whichever you pull, so I have two right here, two CSVs. One is from a 2021 sample, one is from a 2020 sample. The trick is going to be make sure you know, oh, and here it says under a month. So the text is literal here, which is great. I don't know that it says that over here. Yeah, and this other one, it's a numerical representation. So you need to make sure you know the integer representation of duration. What does that mean? Because it's not just weeks or months. It maps to the appendix. The survey question on duration. How long do you believe it usually takes to obtain an alternative credential? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 options. And that's why we can say, is duration 6? And one of my do files, I label it duration 1 plus year, duration 1 year plus. And so like, why does 6 mean that? The answer is because that's what the actual question was. Does that make sense? It's the 6th option. That's why it gets a number of 6. And I'm going to do something weird here. I'm going to give it a categorical treatment and a linear regression. And the reason that that is justifiable is because this is a Likert type measure. This can be interpreted as a Likert type measure. So it's not just a categorical, it's an ordered categorical with many responses. And in this case, I have 6. Likert type measures, you'll do like 3, 4, 5, or like, I don't know, what's the normal? I feel like 4 is pretty normal for a Likert scale. Yeah, 4 to 7. So the fact that it's the number 6 in particular is actually relevant. It would be hard to make the case, even if you had an ordered categorical, if there were only 1, 2, or 3 options, it'd be hard to make the case that you can treat it as a categorical. But as you have more and more options, the discrete set converges towards the continuous set. Is there a continuous set? Well, you can represent a continuum in set theory, yeah. So the discrete set converges towards the continuous set as you have more points in your ordered list. Does that make sense? And then 6 seems like really small. You might say, well, it eventually collapses there. 30, 40 samples, the T distribution collapses to the Z distribution, converges. So why is it not like 30 or 40 points on your Likert scale? Other people have done research and shown that like this actually works. So I'm trusting their research. So my goal is not to convince you that 6 is the number where discrete collapses to continuous. I think that's kind of like a difficult claim to make. My goal is simply to show you that this operates as a Likert type, and other people are going to argue that you can pretty much treat Likert type as continuous. Okay, that's how the argument goes. And so now let me pull up the result of the regression, which is an ordinary linear regression. And there's 2 different data sets, so there's going to be 2 different papers. I'll just be using this one because, I don't know, it's what I had in mind first. So somewhere in here, is going to be duration. Oh, scrolling academic papers. Nope, did I mix up my papers? Okay. Alt ed matching effects. Maybe it's not this one. Okay, so is duration. Oh, I have a matching effects too. I forget what the difference is here between the matching effects and the matching effects too, but let me, because this is like years old, right? But let me see if this is the one that, yeah, so this is the one that reports duration. I'll tear this out and blow this up. I don't like this left overlay on this PDF VS Code extension. Anyway, so here you see duration has a linear and a quadratic term, and they are both highly significant. Some of the most significant features in this linear model. And I'm very confident if you made a lot, this is actually a curvilinear model. So it's not quite accurate to call it linear. It's curvilinear because I have nonlinear terms like this quadratic term. So I would say I'd be very confident that these would be robust to a nonlinear regression, but you can actually make the argument that this is a kind of nonlinear regression because it's a curvilinear regression. Still, when I say other forms, I might have in mind logistic. Do I do a logistic model here? Or even a tree-based model? I'm very confident duration will be a significant feature in all of these models. And then in terms of, there's a positive linear relation and a negative quadratic relation, which gives us the picture of decreasing marginal returns, which is a totally theoretically expected picture, right? How long is the optimal coding bootcamp? Well, it shouldn't be eternal. It shouldn't be eternal. That's not optimal. So you do expect that sometime, you don't think it should be 0 time or negative time. You shouldn't spend 0 time in your bootcamp, right? You should spend some time. So some time is going to be beneficial, and more time could be more beneficial, but eventually it's going to be less beneficial. And so that's exactly this inverse parabola that we expect with decreasing marginal return. Okay, so we're convinced that duration is significant. We're convinced that duration is following the expected theoretical shape. What about the magnitude? How do I actually figure out the right duration? The magnitude is going to be somewhere in these ranges. So what you would do, there's a couple ways you could do this. You could pick your favorite model and just use the magnitudes from there. You could pick a basket of models and look at whether the value is consistent, or you could take an average. And so I'm going to double check, but I think 3, 4, 5, one of these is the preferred model. Preferred. So model 4 is the preferred model. And what I notice when I look at model 4, the negative marginal effect of duration is consistent across 3, 4, and 5. And it's pretty different. It seems to be a kind of like a step jump if I go down to 1 and 2. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, like 3, 4, 5, I like these. And so I'm going to just take the average of the features. And is that stupid? Should I take the average or should I just go with model 4? I'm going to go ahead and go with model 4. Notice that the coefficients are already in the middle of 3 and 5. So the duration coefficient is already between 3 and 5, and the duration squared coefficient is already between 3 and 5. So I don't know that we're gaining much by averaging across the 3. It's already like a central measure, kind of. And this gives me a clearer interpretation. I can say that, like, based on the preferred model, so-and-so is predicted, which is clearer than saying based on some partial aggregate of features from a few pretty good models. So I'm going to stick with model 4 here. And basically, we just need to figure out the value that lets these be 0, okay? So ChatGPT, where you at? And then I'll obviously confirm this with actual math. Given a model y equals x squared plus x, and then what are my coefficients? Minus 103 on the squared term. and then 0.744. Given a model, what value of x yields a 0 value of y? In other words, what is the x-intercept? And so this will be the longest boot camp that you would want to consider. And on the other side of things, you could consider a 0x. Well, that would just give you 0, wouldn't it? Okay. And what value of x maximizes y? Now, the dependent variable in this case is hireability in the eyes of the employer. So this is not exactly what Zach is asking for. Zach, I think I might have covered this already, right? Zach is asking, what would be the one that you would most pay for? And so, people answered the survey. What's the answer? I guess it looks like 5 to 6 weeks on average, but it's sort of bimodal. I'm going to advocate to you that this bimodal distribution is pretty important, and that you have like smarter people down here on the 7+, and that 3 to 4, these people they have in mind something which is not a high quality boot camp. And so this is going to intersect with other research on what counts as a high quality boot camp. If you've been with Latterly for a while, you will already know about the prestige rule. So building a quality portfolio, part of that means a substantive program, which could be a degree or a prestigious boot camp. So you need to actually be able to code and get a job. And you can't just take a YouTube course to do that. Bad news, sorry. Like 3 days watching YouTube videos is not going to get you a job. There's a lot more to it. What will help you get a job, and there's statistical research showing this that I've done. I mean, other people have done the college degree. We know that, right? There's a correlation. And it's a causal correlation. But also this thing called the prestigious coding boot camp. So you should not go to a median or average or random boot camp. You should not go to a random boot camp. You should go to a prestigious boot camp. And there's certain characteristics of these, which include, yes, people get hired from these more often. They're better known to employers, so employer name recognition. The curriculum is somewhat more rigorous, but it's not purely optimizing on rigor. It's also a matter of match. So I could give you a really hard coding problem in like an esoteric programming language. That itself will not get you hired. What will get you hired is training you in the skills that employers want, like JavaScript, Python, things employers are asking for. And you need to know those to a level of competence. I'm not going to turn up the rigor just for rigor's sake. That's a ridiculous approach. What I want to do is I want to ensure that you can meet the interview bar, and that after you're interviewed, ideally, you deliver on the job and the employer is really happy with the learning provider and that relationship grows. So the level of rigor is high enough to endow real skill. But it's not just like rigor maxing. That's not the goal. Okay. And so what I worry is that these 3 to 4 week people, they're just not even close. Whatever they're imagining is just not even close to the concept of a high quality boot camp. It doesn't look like that. It's not going to be high rigor. It's not going to be matching what employers want. I think there is this usage of the term boot camp where it's just used as an alias for like a collection of YouTube videos. And I worry that some people have this in mind, or like a Udacity course, which just doesn't work. There's no correlation to employer hiring. Hireability is what my research is focused on. So if you want to do a boot camp for some other reason, cool. But if you want to do a boot camp to get hired, let's figure out what is the optimal duration for that. And the way we do that is by maximizing the Y value. Okay. So that was clarifying why I'm asking ChatGPT this question. Okay. So the value of X that maximizes Y is approximately 3.61. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trust but verify. So I'm going to go over to Google and do I think I can just do this, 3.61 squared, or like 3.61 times this minus 3.61 squared. So the multiplier on the linear is 0744, and the multiplier on the square is minus 103. Minus 0.013. No? Where's the offset? 0.103. 0.103. Okay, so we're doing this math problem right here. Got it on my clipboard. We'll ask Google. I don't know if it can calculate that. Okay. Math calculator. Quadratic. Mathpapa.com. What's up, Mathpapa? Hook me up. Okay. Let's check this math. So 3.61074, cool. Minus, and then it's squaring the thing I expect and multiplying. Yeah. Okay. So ChatGPT thinks that this is the maximum Y value, 1.34. Let's see if we can get it higher. So we cannot play with the coefficients, but we can play with the duration, and we need to move them as a slider up and down in sync. Okay. So here, let me just drop the 1. And I want to know, does the Y go up? 1.34 didn't notably go up. It may be on the tail there. Oh, there's no Command Z in this little thing here. 3.452, 3.453. Okay, so dropping this 1 here actually took it down as ChatGPT would have predicted. Let me go for 5. 1.34. 1.343. 1.343. And I think we're going down to 1.342 when I make this a 5, don't we?
Dad, could I play video games?
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna go tell Mom that.
Yes, I dropped it down to 1.342, right? So you can say like loosely or casually, like about 3.5. That's not going to help us much though, because we need to refer that back to the survey questionnaire. Now let's try to go up. Let's try to go to 3.7. 3.273. Yeah, so it drops either way. So looks like ChatGPT is right, and I don't think it did language model processing. 3.435, 3.433. Yeah. So this seems pretty optimal. How did it do this? I would have expected that it actually did some code processing, but I'm not seeing like a tab to expand the coding. That's crazy to me. It seemed to use language model processing instead of like bringing on the code compiler, which is cool. Good for you, ChatGPT. So the answer is the optimal duration is 3.16. The optimal duration is 3.61. Sorry. Optimal duration is 3.61. How do we interpret that in light of the fact that we're using a Likert variable? And there's a simple way to do it and a complicated way to do it. So let me find my survey again. Survey, where did you go? Okay, which paper was I referring to? It was this version 2, right? So here's matching effects V2. And then the appendix is a docx. It's not. Bummer. Matching effects V2. This left overlay bugs me so much. How do I collapse it? Okay, cool. How long do you believe it usually takes to obtain an alternative credential? A week, a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, more than a year. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So the maximum value is 6, and we have a value of 3.6. 1, 2, 3. So here's the easy way to interpret 3.6. It's between 3 and 4. That's the easy Likert interpretation. So the easy interpretation is the optimal boot camp from a hireability perspective is 3 to 6 months long. 3 to 6 months long. And you see how that easily passes a sanity check? And again, we can loop back to what's known to be high quality for other research. Based on other research, what's considered to be a high quality school? All schools, the prestige rule is, so we sort by most reviewed. We want a score of 4.25 or higher with a minimum of 400 reviews. This is the prestige rule for high quality coding bootcamp. We could apply the, what's the other rule? There's the robust, there's the high quality bootcamp, and then there's the robust bootcamp, which is like even better. I forget the rule for that, but I think it's just a matter of increasing. So I think the minimum 400 reviews holds, and then you're just looking for like a 4.5 or better on the rating. 4.25 is the high quality rule. That's like the classic one. Thank you so much for the likes. Over 1,000 likes. That's Shiva. Thanks. Okay, so like let's just pick any of these. So for example, the wagon. And what you want to do is you want to see how long is their curriculum. So they have a 9-week curriculum. Okay. Well, that's for data analytics. So that is less long than I would expect. I would expect 12, right? 3 to 6 months. So I'm expecting 12 to 24. 9, 9, 8, 5. This one says full time, but it doesn't have the weeks. I wonder if it's different for software engineering. So this is data science, data science. Here's 24-week. Part-time. Interesting. Here's 7 weeks, 9 weeks. Interesting. So these are faster than I would expect. Okay, cool. LeWagon is faster than I would expect. Let's pick a couple others. So BrainStation, New Camp is kind of weird. We'll skip over that. Springboard and Career Foundry. We'll look at all these. And it could be the case that employers want it to take longer than the boot camps are providing. That's absolutely possible. So here's a 5-week. Here's a 12-week. So this is more what I'm expecting. And these are so different, eh? So this is 5 weeks at 3 hours a week. And this is 12 weeks at 40 hours a week. This one is called boot camp. This one is called online course. So I think, and then the cost difference, yeah, I think this just isn't a boot camp. Even though BrainStation is like a boot camp provider, I think this offering is a course, an online course, not a boot camp. So this is more like what I'm expecting. Here's a course. Okay, so we'll distinguish between courses. Course, I think that might be what I was leaving out. So boot camp. Yeah, there we go. Wow. Okay. Note to self, course report has like courses and boot camps mixed up. Good to know, I guess. So 12 weeks. Let's look for the keyword boot camp. Full-time data science boot camp, 12 weeks. Full-time software engineering boot camp. Yeah, so they're all at 12 weeks. Oh, and here's a 35-week, but that's part-time. This, I think, starts to be a red flag, right? Because wouldn't that go over 6 months? So 6 months would be 24 weeks. So this starts to be a red flag in the eyes of employers, but I think there's an easy tactical remedy for that, which is it's part-time. Like if you're in the interview and the manager is like, oh, it took you 9, would that be like 9? Yeah, it took you like 9 months. It seems like a bit long. Why did it take you so long? I was doing it part-time. You know, if I had done it full-time, I could have done it in half the time. I think there's, yeah, and then it totally makes sense, right? So it passes the, if there is a stigma at all, it's easily remedied, easily mitigated. Okay, we looked at BrainStation. What about Springboard? So courses, and then we're specific, so 24 weeks, right? Smack in the middle of the 3 to 6 month. So what would be the middle of that? 3 month, 12 weeks, 4 months, 16 weeks, 5. So this is 6 month. Okay, it's not smack in the middle. So that's a bit long, yeah? That's a bit long. So this is called a track. That's interesting. It doesn't tell you how many weeks. 26, that's in the 3 to 6. So that's a little bit long, but it's part-time, 20 hours a week. And if you cut it in half for the full-time equivalent, then you're at 13 weeks, and that is just over 12. So it's in the range as well. So we're seeing a lot of variety. This is like an intro course. We're seeing a lot of variety in the duration. But that's pretty much to be expected, right? I mean, making a curriculum is hard. And also the fact that I just calculated an optimal duration doesn't mean that all the people share this. So in the market, people are sort of differentiating themselves slightly specifically by providing a variety of durations. So here's part-time, 36 weeks is like too long, but if you cut it in half, it's 18, that's in the range. Cool. So the sanity check here, and we'll look at Career Foundry. So yeah, the optimal bootcamp that I described, I guess most people, when they respond to the survey, so it's a survey, right? So I guess most people are imagining a full-time gig, or maybe there is some mix that they're saying, well, it could be part-time or full-time. So some survey respondents have in mind, so maybe they're reporting a slightly longer duration because they're accounting for the possibility of full-time or part-time. Cool. So that could be a place for another survey to improve if they ask specifically about full-time versus part-time. But we have like a two-way validation here, right? So here's part-time, cut it in half at 16 weeks. So the two-way validation that we're seeing is basically full-time programs. 40 weeks. Wow, get out of town. It's still within 6 months if you cut it in half, though. It seems like full-time programs align with this 3 to 6 month window, and that the part-time programs are much longer. That's what we're seeing. What we're not seeing is anybody who's doing like let's go back to LeWagon now that I have this course versus bootcamp lens. They actually called a bootcamp, a 9-week bootcamp. And this one is called a course. Okay. And this one is called a data engineering bootcamp. Maybe they're awesome. I mean, they're super highly reviewed. Maybe they're just that awesome, and it's like a LeWagon thing, like a school level effect. They're just different. Could be. Could be. Okay, so I think we validated this 3 to 6 month range. Now remember, 3.6 is the optimal. So the easy interpretation here, what does 3.6 means? It just means between 3 and 6. The slightly more sophisticated take is to say literally 60% of the distance between them. That's going to be sort of suspect. So maybe we just call it like approximately 3.5 and approximately halfway between. So like 9 months divided by 2, 4.5 months, otherwise put as 18 weeks. So it seems like approximately 18 weeks is the optimal duration for a full-time. And this could be slightly inflated as respondents may have in mind that part-time can take a little bit longer, but that would seem to be a small effect. So yeah, I think this is a safe, so I think saying exactly 18 weeks is optimal. I think that's not really safe to say because doing the 60% distance between these two is like a suspect thing to do. But I think when you complement it with, hey, the point estimate is about 18 weeks in the range of 3 to 6 months, this becomes very, very reasonable and externally validated as well as internally advocated. Okay, that's going to be the stream today. I know we didn't get to the social sign-in coding. I'll be doing that later. I may or may not stream it. Thank you for being here. If you found this interesting, follow the page.